So two changes here at the beginning of Article 680. 680.3, Approval of Equipment. This is a rule that was added in the 2017 code, and it actually didn't really do very much, to be perfectly honest. If you really consider the ramifications of what used to be 680.4 and now is 680.3, it now says all equipment covered in this article must be listed. In the 2017 code, they made a requirement that all equipment in the walls or in the water or in the deck of a swimming pool has to be listed. So what equipment would that include? Well, that would include the conduits that are supplying the swimming pool, but of course the conduits already have to be listed. That's a requirement for PVC conduit, for example. You would go to 352.6. If you were using red brass rigid metal conduit, that has to be listed too. That's required in 344.6. So the conduit already had to be listed. Of course, you've also got luminaires, light fixtures in the swimming pool, so those would have to be listed, but Article 410 already requires that all lights have to be listed, whether they're in a swimming pool or not. So what did the 2017 version of this rule really get you? Not much, to be honest. Now we have some very good, clean code language. It says all equipment covered in Article 680 must be listed, and probably most importantly, that would include the swimming pool pump, the motor. Now this is for a storable swimming pool, and as you can see, this is labeled, and it's got the mark from Intertek, both for Canada and the US, so that's what our mark here is, and that mark is evidence of listing. So this motor is labeled because it is a listed product. Be really careful on this. What I found is that I would actually go ahead and say most swimming pool motors are not listed, and they did not have to be listed until the 2020 version of the code. Unlike Article 410 for luminaires, Article 410 has a general rule: all lights have to be listed. You'll find no such rule in Article 430 for motors, and probably for good reason. A lot of motors are manufactured for one specific application and are never made again. It wouldn't be fair to require listing of motors. What I'm finding on swimming pool motors is that many of them are what's called a recognized component. Look at the labeling marks here on this motor. Here I've got this one from CSA, and that is a label of a listing agency, the Canadian Standards Association. Nothing wrong with CSA, but of course they're Canadian. So under the Canadian Electrical Code, this might be permitted. I'm not an expert on the Canadian Electrical Code, but I will tell you that if this product was listed by CSA for use in an NEC regulated installation, it would have to have the letters US right after the CSA mark, and this does not. So this is not listed by CSA for the NEC. It has this backwards UR mark. Now that's a mark from UL, but it is not a listing mark. If it was a listing mark, it would say UL, the mark that we've all seen 1,000 times. A backward UR is what we call a recognized component. A recognized component is something that an original equipment manufacturer might choose to get on a product. Let's say I'm a manufacturer of industrial control panels. If I'm a manufacturer of industrial control panels and I want my products listed, what I would do is I would get all the individual components recognized as a recognized component by UL or Intertek or whoever. And then when I put it all together, they don't have to test the individual components, they're testing the whole assembly, and it might save time and money. I'm not a manufacturer, so I can't guarantee that, but that's basically the concept of a recognized component. Could I use this motor in an NEC regulated application? Not anymore. In the 2017, you could argue that you could. In the 2020 code, you definitely cannot. That is not a listed motor. That is a recognized component. So be very careful. I think you might find the same thing that I found, and that is most swimming pool motors are not listed. Another change that happened is a really odd change, if I'm being honest. 680.4, inspections after installation. The authority having jurisdiction can require periodic inspections and testing after the pool, hot tub, spa, or similar has been installed. Oh, really? Okay, well, Maybe in North Korea that's the case. It's probably not really true in the United States. In the United States, we have this pesky thing called the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution that protects us against unlawful search and seizure of visual evidence like an inspection. So this guy here knocking at this existing house that's here to inspect the pool, probably not permitted under constitutional law. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a constitutional scholar, but I'm going to play one on TV for just a minute. Is this a Fourth Amendment violation in residential? Probably. If you research the legal precedent set by Camara versus San Francisco, you will find that the United States Supreme Court has decided quite clearly that you cannot knock on a person's door and say, hey, let me in, I'm here to inspect the pool, once it's installed. When you have a permit for a pool, that is consent to an inspection. But once the process is over, I can't then show up 5 years later, even if I had it specifically legally adopted in my city amendments. I still cannot overrule the U.S. Constitution. And that's what Camara versus San Francisco established for residential, and heard and decided on the same day in 1967. We have a similar judgment for commercial properties. This was C versus the City of Seattle, where a warehouse owner sued the City of Chicago because he himself, of Seattle, because he himself was sued by the City of Seattle. Seattle sued this warehouse owner because he wouldn't let the fire marshal in for an annual inspection. They had a city ordinance that said once a year thou shalt let the fire marshal into your building, and he said, no, I don't think so. And of course they sued him for breaking their city law. He countersued, went all the way to the Supreme Court, and he won. Again, this isn't North Korea. We don't just get to knock on the door and say, let me in, without a warrant or without probable cause. So if you're an inspector watching this, I'd be very careful indeed about trying to utilize these new provisions in 680.4. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they are removed from the 2023 NEC, because quite frankly, it's not really a rule that can be put into play. These came from my book, A Complete Guide to the 2020 NEC Changes. If you're interested in the book or PowerPoints, if you're an instructor, visit my website, ryanjacksonelectrical.com/shop, and you can get those at that location. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.